filed, this is one of the main things that the federal government is for. The Insurrection Act has been invoked many times throughout American history by both parties. Eisenhower, Kennedy, it's been called in by, it's been requested rather by Democrat governors. And so that's really unsurprising. And what we're looking at here is issue compounding on issue, because we've had this massive invasion of foreign nationals, many of whom are working with foreign terrorist organizations, the criminal cartels that control the southern border. We have crime spiraling out of control generally in places like Chicago, which in terms of the number of murders leads the country, something like 110.
So in this clip, we're going to watch Michael Knowles do what he was put on this earth to do. Michael Knowles, I will say, I mean, I have my differences with Michael Knowles, but Michael Knowles is a debater through and through. Michael Knowles is going to demolish and destroy these crazy leftists. I mean, you could already tell by this guy's terrible eyebrow job. Like, why? What is going on? Like, why does he need those eyebrows? That these people are kooky leftists, and Michael Knowles is going to demolish their talking points. I may not always agree again with everything Michael Knowles says, but that has nothing to do with me. I'm not on the left, but I always give credit to Michael Knowles for being able to break down people in a debate. Let's go ahead and get into it.
1,000 gang members in Chicago alone, and you're seeing an uptick in political violence, particularly from the left, reflected in multiple surveys and then obviously in the horrific incidents that we've seen recently. Most recently, the leftist who was going to bomb the cathedral in Washington, D.C., but of course, going back to Charlie's assassination and others. So you're having a lot of disorder. This is why we have the Insurrection Act. It's why we have the federal government, because I think people are debating between these two false options. Either we can all sit together and sing Kumbaya and nobody can enforce the law, or we're going to have violence. But that's not really the case. The two options you have are you can have just, prudent state violence, that is to say, cops enforcing the law and putting the bad guys in jail, or you can have what you're seeing increasingly celebrated by the left, which is vigilante violence, which is unjust. And I want the just kind. I want an orderly society, and I don't think we should just consign people who happen to live in failed blue cities to misery and rape and murder and all the rest of it.
Okay, Sri Tanada, your response to that?
Well, look, militarization of our cities is not the answer. Just yesterday...
I don't mean to be racist, y'all, and please forgive me. Like, but how did he get elected anywhere? Like, what? God forgive me. I know, like, okay. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell if you do like this clip and other clips like it.
Mother, who's in America for 30 years, she was going to a grocery store to buy some ingredients so she can make meatball soup for her kids. And ICE has detained her. She is now behind in the ICE detention center. I saw her daughter crying. These are not gang members. These are not hardened criminals. They're arresting 17-year-old high school kids, putting away American citizens, 4, 5-year-old American citizens, kids who are suffering from leukemia in the ICE detention center, losing their doctor's appointments. You can talk all about gang members. You know, nobody...
I wouldn't talk about that. I mean, just to stop me there, but, you know, I want to talk specifically about the deployment of federal troops, not necessarily the wider separate issue of what ICE is doing with undocumented people in the United States. I've debated that a lot. We can touch on that in a moment, but just specifically on the deployment of federal troops in states which are not DC, where obviously the federal government can do that. The president has that power. You know, there is this raging argument now about whether it is constitutional, whether it is lawful for the president of the United States to do what Trump is now rolling out in places like Chicago. What is your view of that?
It's not only not legal, it's not only unconstitutional, but more importantly, it's not even good business, because this costs so much, putting federal troops in cities. Instead of that, if federal government can give the grants so that local police, law enforcement can hire more people. Right now, they are severely understaffed. They don't have the resources they need to keep our cities safe. Now, in a long-term process...
But aren't you answering your question? I mean, aren't you
I think you're
making
the point.
Right. I mean, in a way, what you just said is the rationale for doing it, isn't it? I mean, they're under-resourced. No. They don't have enough people. They can't control the crime. Donald Trump is recognizing this and he's doing something about it. And I'm curious about how many regular Americans who live in some of these very crime-ridden inner cities in America are really as opposed to it as you sound like you are. Because, if you've got a lot of crime going on around you and the police are woefully under-resourced, why would you object to seeing some troops on the streets to just try and restore order and perhaps send a real message to criminals?
See, putting military and reserves all over America, major American cities, and militarization of our country is not the solution. The solution is empower the local law enforcement, give them the funds that they need. It's the funding that needs to come so we can have a more long-term, long-lasting solution to it.
Congressman, are you familiar with the Insurrection Act?
Yes, I am.
And so what do you think that's for? You said that this was illegal. You said it was not unconstitutional and illegal for the federal government to send National Guard into cities and states. What do you think the Insurrection Act is for?
Well, look, this is a issue that the local government should be handling. What is the
answer to that?
I don't think you understand the Insurrection Act.
Right, so to Michael's, well, let me just ask, Congressman, do you actually know what the Insurrection Act says?
Yes, but this is...
hang on. What does it say?
Well, look, what we saw happen in January 6th in the Congress, that's insurrection.
That's not the question.
It's so embarrassing. How did he get elected? Like, I was kind of joking at first, making fun of his accent a little bit. And I don't care. I'll make fun of it because, I just want to. But all jokes aside, completely aside, how did this man get elected to anything? He doesn't know anything about what he's talking about. And he has a bad eyebrow job.
The question is, are you familiar? Obviously, the government is citing the Insurrection Act as the empowerment to do what it's doing. Are you familiar with what the Insurrection Act allows?
Yes, I am. But look, this president has used all kinds of excuses to break the law. This president has used...
No, but that is the law. So what is the law, Congressman? You say you're familiar with the Insurrection Act, but you don't seem to be able to describe what it does, and you're actually contradicting it. So what do you think the Insurrection Act does?
Look, the issue here is that we need our cities safe. Americans want...
Well, Congressman, with all due respect, that's not an answer to the question. I mean,
can you lay out what you believe allows Donald Trump to act?
Well, hang on, Jack. I'm going to come to you very shortly, but just to be clear, Congressman, it's a pretty simple question that Michael posed, which is the government are citing the Insurrection Act as the rationale and the legal tool by which they can do what they're doing. You said it's illegal and wrong, and they shouldn't be doing it. But you seem to be struggling to explain what the Insurrection Act actually is. And Michael, quite rightly, is saying, well, can you just tell us?
Well, whatever it is, when the National Guards are picking up trash and the National Guards are watering the flowers, that is not Insurrection Act, and that's not what this is meant to be.
But do you know what it is, the act?
Yeah.
What is it?
When there is an insurrection, the government has powers to use military, use reserve to address those situations. And this is clearly not the situation here. What we need to do is empower local law enforcement.
Okay, Michael, your response to that. Data broker.
That is actually what it's for. We have a federal government in order to step in when the local and state governments fail. And so this has been used many, many times, not merely to restore order if there's some violent revolution, but even, for instance, to desegregate schools. This has been used many, many times over the course of American history. There's nothing illegal about it. And in fact, what President Trump is doing right now is one of the clearest and most just uses of the Insurrection Act when you have cities that are failing, that in your own words cannot enforce the law, are under-resourced, and are falling into disorder. So I think you've made a good argument for what President Trump is doing.
Okay.
Look what he's doing.
Let me bring in Jack. I want to bring in Jack. He's been waiting patiently. I mean, Jack, it seemed to me the congressman actually, maybe inadvertently, gave the explanation for why Trump feels justified in using the Insurrection Act. Because if you agree that the law enforcement in these very crime-ridden cities is failing and under-resourced, then why shouldn't the government use the Insurrection Act to put troops on the ground and try and restore proper order?
Well, because I don't think the intention is to restore proper order. Donald Trump and his entire administration has made it clear that they'd be happy to see unrest come out of sending in the National Guard. That's what they wanted out of their attack on LA. That's what they wanted to happen in DC. Donald Trump sees this as an
Do you have any
opportunity
evidence for that?
to intimidate people. It's come out directly of the administration that they think it is a win if they go into Portland and nothing happens, but nothing is happening. It's people in T-Rex Halloween costumes who are getting maced for simply exercising their First Amendment right, which, Michael, I thought you cared about. It doesn't really seem like that's the case. But they've also said that if there is
where are you getting that
unrest,
from? Hold on, before you make that, you made an
well,
argument.
I think if you would allow
said
me to
that
finish my
the
point,
Trump administration
I did
wants
just say that
disorder
you don't
and has
really like
admitted this. What's
you
your
don't like
evidence
to
for
hear
that?
people speak out, and now I'm delivering a point that you don't seem to like, and you want to silence me. That's what this administration does. It's
No,
okay. You
I'm
don't
just
have the
asking
power to
for
do
your
that
evidence.
today.
Now, Jack,
You don't
to
have
be
the power
clear,
to-
you made a statement that the Trump administration actively wanted disorder, and Michael, I think, understandably,
it
because I
has
would
been
ask,
reported.
I would
It
ask
has
the
been
same thing.
reported.
Where is the
It
evidence?
has been reported.
Where is the
It has
evidence that
been-
they wanted disorder?
It has been reported that this administration sees it as a win if
by
unrest
whom?
comes out of the deployment. It came out of Axios, that they see it as a win if there is unrest because of these deployments. Because they want to say, look at this hellscape in Portland, when all of the photos that I've seen are just like people in T-Rex costumes hanging out and going to the farmer's market. And if you really want to deploy the National Guard, Mike Johnson's district could certainly use it. These failing red states. If you want to talk about states that are failing, red states are failing. They need to be subsidized by California and New York, Massachusetts. These states,
But see, the thing is, though, they are sending the National Guard to a lot of red states, though. So it's like, this is the problem. It's like everybody is so tribal. He's saying red states because he doesn't want to say blue cities, because blue cities actually are a problem. So he goes to the red states. But if he was being honest with his fans, then he would know that actually on the list, there were a lot of red states on the list for the National Guard, which is why I was really concerned, because I was like, I don't know. And I said it on a debate. I was like, I don't understand why white people are, perfectly fine with, troops being sent out to, mountain areas and things like that. I said, I mean, we have a history of doing this before and it didn't turn out well, but whatever. So this is why people would just get on my nerves.
these Republican states that are being run into the ground, if you're talking about people who need aid and assistance, they're suckling off of California. It has nothing to do with the crime-ridden, failing blue states. It's a non-issue. And this politics
think
of
there's no crime in
subtraction.
Chicago?
One second,
You
Michael.
think Chicago's doing all right?
There's politics of subtraction where you think if you just take away and take away and take away and we'll eventually hit a bottom. It just doesn't actually exist as a real theory. If you thought that law enforcement was the answer to this
Politics of
problem,
subtraction.
Donald Trump wouldn't be cutting the budget of police across the country to the tune of billions of dollars. Like that wouldn't be happening.
Talking about
So
Trump,
you don't
Trump
really have
dramatically
a
increased the law enforcement budget.
First of all, that's
Federal
not true,
law.
which is what just took place in his budget.
He did. That was the big
No,
beautiful bill. That was one of the
that
that
is
was one of the key provisions of the big
absolutely
beautiful
untrue.
bill.
That is absolutely untrue. So you don't even have this like cogent theory of policing or law enforcement that
Jack,
you want to
hold
see
on. Your
carried
argument
out.
is that the
It's
big
all
beautiful
about
bill
intimidation.
did not increase law enforcement funding at the federal
And
level.
Donald Trump
ultimately a
has
temporary
cut
fix.
again and again.
Congressman,
and again.
could you please
What we need to
clarify
do-
for our confused liberal friend here?
Yeah, we need to have a long-term solution to this, and that is only by reinforcing our local law enforcement. That's what we need to
Congressman,
do.
did the big
Again, the
beautiful
point-
bill
the point-
increase federal law enforcement funding?
Again, the point, Congressman, is whether in the big beautiful bill there was an increase or a decrease in federal spending for law enforcement. Which one was it?
Well, there was an increase, but look.
Okay, so then again, I come.
Okay, so there you go. So Michael Knowles forces him to admit it. This congressman is freaking hilarious. He finally was able to answer one question. This was a pretty good debate. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.